Good morning. I think it's 10:30, so it's time for board announcements before the service starts. You're going to see me playing a few different roles today. This is one. For my second time ever, I'm the board announcer. I might not get everything right, and I didn't talk to people about, oh gosh, what needs to be announced. So when we get to that point about the e-news, if you have something that you really want spoken here, just walk up this way and stand in front of this mic. But let me start with, my name is Scott Redman, and I use he, him pronouns. I serve as one of your Board of Trustee members. Actually, the congregation elected me to be president of the board this year. We are 2 meetings into it. I'm happy to welcome you all to the Tahoma Unitarian Universalist congregation. Longtime members, and I see some of you, and new visitors, I see some of you, are welcome here. Whether you're joining us here on site in the sanctuary or online from another location, and I know we have people from West Tacoma and Puyallup, and I don't know where else. We're glad you're here. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. And love is the power that holds us together. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. You are welcome just as you are. If this is your first time with us, I bid you a special welcome. I'm so glad you found your way to our community. After the service, I'll be in the back of the sanctuary, right over there, to answer any questions that you may have about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, or if you want to talk about how to get involved in our community, come find me back there. Feel free to join me. For those of you here in the sanctuary, we have hearing assistance devices and large print hymnals available in the back of the sanctuary. And people who might act like ushers can help you with these. I'm going to point to Janie in the back, who might be pretty helpful there. Thank you. For our service this morning, Chris George is online as our online chat chaplain. Thanks for filling in that role. Chris, she is helping online folks, and she'll do a little bit in the on-site here in the service. All of us will be utilizing the screen that's behind me to project words for unison readings and lyrics for our hymns. And you can also follow along in the printed order of service. In addition to a printed order of service, in some chairs, there's a stack of some poems. We're going to get to that poem during the reading. And if you don't have one, find someone who has a whole stack, because no one needs more than one, but it'd be great if we all had one. Or if some of you together might share one. Also, on the order of service, on the back side, you can find information about our website, which is tahomauu.com, and about where you can find information about some upcoming events, volunteer opportunities. On that order of service is the QR code to take you to our weekly e-news. And if you aren't signed up for e-news, you can sign up today. There are many ways to become more involved and deeply connected with our spiritual community. Those of us on site are invited to join a social time immediately following the service right here in the sanctuary. There'll be coffee and refreshments. The people doing our coffee ministry have been hard at work, so let's go enjoy what they've brought upstairs here. It's a great time to catch up or get to know someone new. For those of you who are visiting or kind of new to the community, feel free to grab one of the red mugs. That's a signal to us that you're new here and might appreciate someone approaching you for a conversation. And lastly, and I need to do this myself, set your electronic devices to this fancy setting we call worship mode. I just did it, good. We are gathered here, one community together. Let us settle ourselves into this holy moment and open our hearts to learn and unlearn, to share and to receive. I have a shortened version of our land acknowledgement. I'm borrowing from what's up here. I like the full version we've been doing, but this is what I'm ready to do. So I want to respectfully acknowledge that I speak to you and we gather today from occupied Puyallup and Coast Salish ancestral lands. I pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. Now let us join together in worship. Thank you, Mary Ann. I want to offer some opening words from an anonymous writer. These are some of the offerings that are in the back of our gray hymn. Anonymous tells us, "May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other." I now want to invite Lauren Bisplinghoff over here with no Bella, but you might see her sometimes with Bella. Lauren's going to be our song leader today. But in the meantime, she is going to be our chalice lighter. Pay attention to Lauren when it's time to sing, because she's a good leader. It will help us. And appreciate what Lauren does here. She's becoming quite the active member. I think we get some words first. No, the lighting first, and then the words. And now join me in these unison words. We light this chalice in deep respect for the mystery and holiness of life, in honor and gratitude for those who have gone before, with love and compassion for those who dwell among us, and with hope and faith for the generations to come. We are going to move into our opening hymn, but I thought I would do one more announcement I forgot to do. I was going to say we're the hardy ones for coming to church this morning, but there's another hardy crew who during the storm last evening was camping out down in Morton. So there's a candle, at least one candle lit over there for people who are camping. I hope it went okay. Yeah. Lauren, and we're going to do hymn number 360 in the gray hymnal, and Lauren's going to guide us. Please rise in body or spirit.
Good morning.
Some people know it's time for all ages. Anybody else want to come up? This is great, by the way. We're going to share a storybook. It's one that I have brought here so many times before, and I usually read it myself. This time we get someone who's a more accomplished reader to do it by video. This is a book that when my daughter was pretty little, the book refers to little one, and she was called Annie at the time, and she was a little one. Now she's 23, and we call her Annika. So it's been around since the late 90s, but let's watch the video of Whoever You Are by Mem Fox. Really, we have a video.
Whoever You Are, written by Mem Fox and illustrated by Leslie Staub. Little one, whoever you are, wherever you are, there are little ones just like you all over the world. Their skin may be different from yours, and their homes may be different from yours. Their schools may be different from yours. And their lands may be different from yours. Their lives may be different from yours. And their words may be very different from yours. But inside, their hearts are just like yours. Whoever they are, wherever they are, all over the world. Their smiles are like yours, and they laugh just like you. Their hurts are like yours, and they cry like you too. Whoever they are, wherever they are, all over the world. Little one, when you are older and when you are grown, you may be different, and they may be different wherever you are, wherever they are in this big, wide world. But remember this: joys are the same, and love is the same. Pain is the same, and blood is the same. Smiles are the same, and hearts are just the same, wherever they are, wherever you are, wherever we are. All over the world.
Thanks, Michael. Well, that is something that up here in the sanctuary, we're going to keep talking about some of the stuff that was in that book. So just remember that phrase, whoever you are, because we're going to sing something about that in a minute. But first, we're going to make an arch and sing our children downstairs to their class.
Good morning. As we're listening to music from Marianne, the ushers will be passing the baskets. Please notice also that there are baskets up front on the table to support our trans relocation project and our safe parking program. Information for online donations is right there on the screen, and you can also give to those two additional programs online if you would like. So with this reading, we will begin the collection. This offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Ann. We are, as the slide switches, going to dedicate these offerings with these words we say in unison. We dedicate ourselves and our offerings to the work of this congregation, weaving a tapestry of love we call community, both within and beyond these walls. And now I promise we get to sing Whoever You Are. It's actually number 188 in the gray hymnal. Come, come, whoever you are. And Lauren's going to introduce it and help us along.
So we're gonna sing one round just together, and then I think, well, we're doing three, right, Marianne? We're doing three. Okay, two then, so we'll just do it, I think we should just do it all together anyways. Let's just do it, let's keep it easy.
2 times 3?
Yeah. It's a short one, but it's sweet. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Yet again, come. We're supposed to do rounds. We'll figure that out next time.
For our reading this morning, we actually have some visual aids. So for all of us, the poem, A Ritual to Read to Each Other, is going to appear on 3 different slides. First 2 stanzas, and then stanzas 3 and 4, and then stanza 5. These are also sprinkled around the sanctuary. If you don't have one yet, maybe raise your hand and we'll bring you one. You don't have an assignment this first time through, except to maybe just let it soak in, okay? I'll do the reading. The reason we're handing them around is this comes up again in the sermon that we're going to view in a little bit, and we'll actually pause in the midst of the sermon and talk about this poem a little bit. So it's not on the test, don't worry about that, but there's some richness here, okay? So this is by William Stafford. It's from 1998, a good long time ago, and it's called A Ritual to Read to Each Other, which is what we're about to do. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. The sermon video will start. We will pause it a few times and I'll come back up here, but enjoy the Reverend Sharon Dittmer.
William E. Stafford was born in Kansas in 1914, and though very talented, he was a late bloomer. From 1942 to 1946, he lived with other conscientious objectors in work camps in Arkansas and California. He published for his first book of poetry at the age of 48. The reviewer Gerald Burns wrote that Stafford's poems about humanity detail, quote, "What relation is possible between us and the frightening land buried under all that asphalt, and how such a peculiar people as ourselves can live together with something like dignity." How countercultural to write about the challenge of human contact, communication, and dignity for all. I love Stafford's poems because they are disconcerting, and they seem to point towards a moral compass I forgot to remember. He never offers quick solutions or easy answers. Every poem, every time, I need to sit. What does it mean? What does it mean to me now? What about it makes me uneasy? Because there is often something about his poems that will make me uneasy. And I go further to ask, what is my place in this world? In a world of speed and urgency, high speed, this and that, social media and multiple platforms, everything goes so fast. I can't be the only person in the room who remembers a day without cell phones. I miss those days. I was the last minister I knew not to have a cell phone. I waited so long that I outlasted pagers. I never had one of those either. I did not want to be found while I was driving or out walking or during dinner. I wanted, and I still want, to do one thing at one time. When I take too much in, I become a facile, careless processor. I disregard who I am and follow I am not always sure what or where. Nowadays, I feel like I blur and slide through the world from one event, call, post, email, and picture to another. I struggle to sometimes lead rather than merely follow or react. And I wonder what patterns I repeat, which gods I follow, and if there are small betrayals in my mind. I think of this especially in an election year, as Americans divide farther into their camps. In a recent episode from the science podcast Hidden Brain, host Shankar Vedantam interviews Kurt Gray, University of North Carolina social psychologist, researcher, and teacher. Gray researches how the human mind works when it feels under attack, particularly during political polarization. As much as I think my political opinions have been rigorously tested and remain well informed, I actually had doubts after this segment. And instead of assuming I had it all figured out, I began to wonder what I have assumed, what I might have missed, what else might not be true. According to Gray, humans think their, quote, side is smart and wants policy to help themselves and others. Moreover, we think our opponents are stupid and don't appreciate what is best for themselves or the country. Vedantam listened to Gray speak and noted that we think others are sheep people, stupid, simple, ignorant, easily misled, wrong. I ask you to consider if any part of any opinion you hold includes the belief that others who do not agree with you are sheep people. I was embarrassed at the times I have thought in general that people who disagree with me are ignorant. Our brains truly are deceiving. According to Gray, we overestimate how much our opponents dislike us by 50 to 300%. Let me repeat that. According to Gray, we overestimate how much our opponents dislike us by 50 to 300%. And the more partisan we are, the more we inflate ideas about hatred from the other side. And no, it's not just other people who do that. It's you and me. In addition, when we think people will hate us, we are more apt to cloak ourselves as victims and the other side as villains. Apparently, our brains like this model because it is cognitively simple and our brains yearn for order. If we stretch this out, the consequences are actually spectacular. Please let your mind take a stroll through the personal, family, work, local, national, and world conflicts of your choosing and consider the impact if what even a portion of Gray says is true. What would it mean if we're inflating it by 50%, 100%, 300%? I do think that some of us are in a fight for survival in this world. I do think lives and livelihoods are at risk. And my guess is that even those of us here today with our shared UU values, though, would not agree about what or who those are. Moreover, some of us with more privilege, such as myself, a white, heterosexual, cisgender, middle-aged woman with a college education, have more privilege and power. So attempting to change our thoughts and take alternative approaches is less risky if we have more power and privilege. So we should take some risks first. Gray notes that compromise means we need to talk with one another, and it is hard to listen or talk when it feels like a fight for survival. For years now, though, I've actually been interested in what people who do not think like me actually believe. The more older I get, the more I realize I don't know. And so I love the writing of Stafford because he often writes about complicated moral issues without religious or political trappings. For me, his words are a relief as I slide through the blur of work and images, following too easily in line after others. I invite you to read Stafford's poem again, this time with another voice or other voices. Pause the recording so you can listen to the voices of others.
Does anyone want to come up here and read a stanza? One that pops for you, or let's start with the first one, do the second one, do them in order. I see a few hands. Paul, can't remember your name. Susan, come on up. Let's hear some more voices. I've got a copy of the poem here if you don't have it. Anybody really dying to do the first stanza? Susan's here first. Is that okay?
I can do that, sure. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star.
For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike.
And as elephants parade holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact.
And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark.
For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep.
Thank you all. I think we're going to go back momentarily to the video, and then we'll be back to a pause again.
Now that you've heard from Stafford again, turn to a neighbor and share what words stand out for you in this poem. What words stand out for you? Consider also, what about this poem makes you uneasy? What about this poem makes you uneasy? And finally, what's your favorite part and why? It is, of course, fine not to participate with a partner in this exercise for any reason without having to explain yourself. You could choose to write or silently reflect. If you are worshiping in person and need some place to hear better, please remove yourself from the sanctuary to find a quiet spot with a partner. If you're from a historically marginalized identity and would like to speak with someone who might share some of your identities, feel free to search for those people. And if you're online and are interested, you could move into a breakout room with a partner, or you could comment in the chat feature. Pause the recording again to listen and display the text on screen so everyone can see it, reflect, and listen.
There, and a couple of corrections. Our online people, there's no way for us to move into small groups, so use the chat. And unfortunately, there's no way for us to display the words, which is why we have printed them. I'm sorry for the online folks. Maybe do a quick Google search of this poem or William Stafford. As you are comfortable, turn to someone near you or someone across the sanctuary that you're interested in talking with in the way that Reverend Dittmer just talked about. Let's take a few minutes for this. Thank you all. We're going to start the video up again, and there'll be more time to share, including coffee time. So let's go back to the video.
Would anyone like to share an aha they had, either in their journaling or a comment they saw in the chat or from a conversation they had with someone else? I'll pause again so you can listen to some of your ahas.
We'll pause again. Does anyone want to share something with the big room? And know that this is a way to share with the online folks too. Anybody?
Hello. Okay. Marianne and I were talking about two spots in the poem that talk about darkness. Sorry, I keep getting a dry spot in my throat, so if I have to get a sip of water, that's why. The one that she liked, the line that she liked most was, "The darkness around us is deep." And that's basically the ending of the poem, right? And we were talking about how right now and universally that seems to be the case. I like to use the analogy that I think after COVID, the whole world is in PTSD. And it's not just affected one person, it's affected every single one of us on multiple levels. And then the line that I appreciated the most was, "And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy." Yeah, they're both dark. It's funny because Marianne and I are kind of opposites. I'm an extrovert and she's an introvert, but we both resonated with the same ideas, right? And one thing that I found in my journey of healing and existence on this planet is that without darkness, you can't have the light. And so darkness is always, for me, not a negative thing, but a place of change and a place of, I use the phrase adjust, adapt, and basically reassess the situation and then keep moving forward. So it's not always a bad thing. Darkness can also be a really positive and a space for growth and change. So that's what I saw in it.
Anyone else want to share? Paul.
One thing that felt sort of like a conflict in the poem to me was it gives us this idea of, the elephant following the elephant in front of it and just sort of blindly, sleepily walking along. But then it also cautions us that, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. And a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep, and the darkness around us is deep. So at the same time, it's letting us know that we're sleepily following the person in front of us and we're not really aware of the decision we're making. But also at the same time, it feels like it's cautioning us that if we make too much of a disruption, we might get lost in the deep dark, which is sort of a weird conflict that feels odd to me in the same poem.
Anybody else? I see you, Chris. And then we're going to get back to the video.
As a hydrotheologist, I like to maintain some fluidity. The thing that got me was the wrong, we might follow the wrong God home, we may miss our star. Well, to me, I pray to whom it may concern, and it's up to them whether I miss the star or not.
That's great. Okay, I think let's go back to the video. Thank you all.
Andrew Gibson is a poet, writer, activist, performer, and the current poet laureate for the state of Colorado. They were born in Maine in 1975 and are a survivor of chronic Lyme disease and ovarian cancer. In 2023, their cancer returned. Gibson is the only poet I regularly read, and they write about living deeper and more honestly and joyfully than almost anyone I can remember. Their gift shop has sweatshirts that read, "Awkward is awesome," and crying is my superpower. Gibson writes, I don't necessarily identify within a gender binary. I've never in my life really felt like a woman, and I've certainly never felt like a man. I look at gender on a spectrum, and I feel somewhere on that spectrum that's not landing on either side. This morning, you're either going to watch a video by Gibson from their Instagram channel. It is entitled, The Land of I Don't Know.
Years ago, my therapist and I were talking about something that I had done that I really regretted. And she said, you know, I think most people are doing the best they can just about all the time. And I said, well, then most people's best is terrible. And she said, right. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing their best. And for many years, I had nothing but resistance to this idea. I feared that it would lead to a lack of accountability. I feared that if I believed people were doing their best, I would have more compassion for folks doing harm than for those who were impacted by that harm. And then a couple of months ago, while on a podcast, I was asked how I defined a good person. And my answer surprised me. I didn't say someone who is kind. Instead, I said someone who is trying to be kind. And I want to pose a question for you today. If you were to believe that people in general were doing the best they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? That question, it stretches my mind so much. It's like a yoga class for my psyche and in turn my spirit. It transports me from the land of I know to the land of I don't know, which is to me the most fertile land in existence.
Please turn towards a neighbor and share your thoughts about the questions below. And it will help again if the text of the video is displayed. First, what words or phrases stand out for you? What words or phrases stand out for you? And second, and I'm quoting Gibson here, if you were to believe that people in general were doing the best they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? And when and if you answer that second question, please do the work of imagining that the first part is actually true so you can be challenged by that second part. Again, feel free to look for a partner who might share more of your identities. Leave the room if you need to hear better. Write on your own, be silent, comment in the chat, or move into a breakout space. And no need to repeat what you did before. You could try something new this time. Again, pause the recording and listen to yourself or others.
All right. I think in the interest of time and because of technology limitations, I'm just going to read Andrea Gibson's question again. And as Reverend Dittmer says, try to think about if the first part is true, then what? So think about this as an if this is true, then what would I do? If you were to believe that people in general were doing the best that they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? We could have a great coffee hour after this. So like keep that in mind. And I've got a picture of it on my phone. I'm happy to share it. Let's go back to the video.
Are there any ahas someone would like to share? Anything that came forward for you as you wrote or listened or thought? Pause the recording again.
Don't pause, Michael.
The first time I reflected on the question, quote, if you were to believe that people in general were doing the best they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? I just stopped short. I really could not take it in. I thought to myself, there is no way that insert politician name or country or political party is doing their best. Then I did what I just asked you to do. I actually imagined that the first part was true. And over time, I actually came up with things that surprised me for the second part of that question. Well, I would have to slow down for one thing. I would have to listen longer and deeper in hopes that I could understand the core values of people who do not agree with me. I would have to seek out more spaces with people unlike me, and I'd have to spend time in them and with people I found there. I would need to creatively look for areas where I did share, quote, ground with people who do not agree with me. I would have to stop saying to myself out loud that people who don't agree with me are stupid or evil or don't care about democracy. I would have to treat people who don't agree with me with dignity. I would have to separate the totality of all political party views from individuals who are members of that party, because just like people who go to church, people who belong to a political party do not always agree with all parts of the party platform. I would have to practice more wonder, and I would have to act in hope. And I recently tried this, and I will be honest, I really listened, I really tried, but I also had to admit, sometimes I just don't share basic groundwork with people. But I didn't go in assuming that. I went in thinking, if I tried to find some, maybe I would. And I did find some, but honestly, not enough for the conversation at hand. I don't regret the exercise, though. I feel relief that I know I really tried. Instead of making it simple or easy or simplistic for me, I actually really challenged myself, and I actually took the time to fully, respectfully listen to another and thank them for sharing their viewpoints. Somewhere I read that the morning William Stafford died, he had written a poem containing the lines, "You don't have to prove anything." My mother said, "Just be ready for what God sends." At the rate of communication and information today, I don't think that I or anyone else have made much space for what God, if we believe in God, or the universe sends. It's more likely that hurtling through space with our noses lowered to a paper or book or platform or our phone, we have missed multiple stars. But what is actually out there if we choose to think deeper? What is out there if we stop following, lift our heads, and pause to look around? Who would we find on the way, and what would we learn? Who are we when we hold multiple truths, some irreconcilable, and rest actually within that dissonance? What happens when we listen to our neighbors, particularly the ones with different opinions? Could we be pencils in need of erasers? For those of us like myself with more privilege and power, we actually should try this first. Others need to be more cautious for their safety and well-being. Please note that if we partake in this work, I did not say we need to compromise our values and agree with other people on all points. We just need to respectfully listen. Nor did I suggest we place ourselves in situations where we will be unsafe, ridiculed, or harmed. I just suggested we find spaces to consider the respectful thoughts of other people, particularly the ones with whom we disagree. And just because we can't think of one space where that might be in this moment, it doesn't mean it would not be worth the try. You don't have to prove anything. Just be ready. Just be ready.
All right. Thank you to Reverend Dittmer. Thanks to the UUA for putting that up. We're going to take a moment and set an intention for the week ahead. Is there something in the poem, in Reverend Dittmer's words, in Marianne's playing, in our hymns that inspires you to think about something for the next steps in your life ahead? So just take a moment and set an intention. All right, I'm going to call us back together. Know that on the back of your order of service, there's a place to jot down. I didn't give us very long on that right now. I'm looking at the clock. You can see it from here. We're going to do the final steps in our service. So I'm going to invite Lauren back up here to lead us in hymn number 159. This is one of my favorites. This is my song. And please rise in body or spirit.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But others' lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for land of war and mine.
Powerful words in that one.
Some very brief closing words. This happens to be what Paul wrote to the Romans in chapter 12. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds. And now, somebody, maybe Megan, can extinguish our chalice when the time comes. When you see you can head up there, but don't put it out until after we've read the words together and you see yourself on screen. So first off, let's say these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. All right. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, everybody. Let's do our closing blessing song.